Economist here, so I'm going to try and get this video out fairly quickly here. I wanted to talk about the treasuries of the United States and the foreign holdings of these treasuries. You're getting a lot of chatter out there right now with people who are saying that the foreign holdings of these U.S. treasuries are coming to an end. People are dumping them and they're going to get out of the dollar. Now, something that I have tried to share here on this channel is that the dollar is doing something that no other nation is doing, and that is providing a safe and liquid asset for the world to use as far as transactions go. So now this is important to understand, but what's even more important to understand is the unreal amount of debt that the United States has taken on and what that debt means, because we have to make a payment on that debt. But there's also debt that we hold, like foreign nations' debt that we hold as the United States, and they make a payment to us. Now, this is a short little section out of a document that was actually shared on our community over on school at the University. So I want to thank you very much. I believe it was Mike. Gosh, I hope I don't get that wrong. But thank you very much for sharing it. It's there at the University community. And this is what it says here. And I just love how this so relates to the Cantillon effect. And once you put these two together, it's just like, man, it is so telling of the demise that we are facing going into the future when it comes to the dollar. So listen to this. This is how it goes down. This is coming from here. Let me share. Hold on. What page are we on there? They were on page 1. Okay. This is Foreign Holdings of Federal Debt, the Congressional Research Service, updated May 23rd, 2025. And now this is what it has to say here. From an economic perspective, foreign holdings of federal debt can be viewed in the broader context of U.S. savings, investment, and borrowing from abroad. For decades, the United States has saved less than it invests. Domestic savings is composed of savings by U.S. households, businesses, and governments. By accounting identity, when the government runs budget deficits, it is reducing domestic savings. By the same account identity, the shortfall between U.S. savings and physical investment is met by borrowing from abroad. To be a net borrower from abroad, the United States must run a trade deficit, i.e., it must buy more imports from foreigners than it sells and exports to foreigners. Borrowing from abroad has occurred through foreign purchases of both U.S. government and U.S. private securities and other assets. So now basically what it is saying is that as long as you are importing stuff and exporting money, those people will borrow, or basically you can borrow from them because they are buying your bonds. Right? So this is what the government is doing, buying their stuff, giving them money, and then they buy our bonds. We make a payment to them. As a result, as a result of foreign purchases of treasury securities, then buying the bonds, the federal government must send U.S. income abroad to foreigners. You get that? So now if we're going to do this and we're going to borrow money from them, we must send them income, right? The federal government must send U.S. income abroad to foreigners. If the overall economy is larger as a result of the federal borrowing, because the borrowing stimulated economic recovery or was used to productively add to the U.S. capital stock, for example, then this outcome may leave the United States better off overall on net despite the transfer of income abroad. In other words, without foreign borrowing, U.S. income would be lower than it currently is net of foreign interest payments in this scenario. Now, for the most part, that's very confusing, but for the most part, you could kind of understand it, right? If we are borrowing money, then using that money to buy their stuff. And so long as this continues, everything is hunky-dory, right? That's essentially what it says. because of the borrowing stimulated economic recovery or was used to productively add to the U.S. capital stock, for example. So borrowing for stimulating economic recovery. Now that's a very interesting statement because the very next statement is or. So this means that the stimulating economic recovery is not used for productive or not used productively to add to U.S. capital. It's one or the other. Right? So now when we think about this from the beers and sauce scenario, you borrowing money, then doing what? Buying either beers or saws. Remember this analogy that I had used so many years ago? And that if you relate everything down to either a beer or you relate it down to a saw, if you go and you stimulate the economy with beer, there's a lot of economic activity that can happen. You will have agricultural products, you will have distribution, you'll have entertainment, you'll have a lot that goes in to the economy if it is stimulated with the production and consumption of beer. But once the beer is consumed, then what? You're making a payment and you have nothing left. Now, or, right, that's what I should say, or you could be productive with it. Invest into saws. Use those saws. It doesn't do anything for you. You don't get to party and drink beer while you're using the saws, but you use the saws for a while, pay back the payment that you had used to borrow, or pay back the money that you had borrowed to buy the saws, and now you use the saws for productive capabilities, right? This is exactly what it is saying here. Only they don't use a beer and saw analogy. I do that because it's much easier to understand than Fed speak, but this is actually coming from Congress. But that's what it says here, right? If the overall economy is larger as a result of federal borrowing, let me see here, for federal borrowing, because the borrowing stimulated economic recovery. Now you can do that with beer, or was used productively, added to the U.S. capital stock, for example, then this outcome may leave the United States better off overall on net despite the transfer of income abroad, because you are producing more. Right? But if you borrow this money, consume, and then all of a sudden the economic activity is gone, what do you have to do? You have to borrow again. And this is how the stimulation is taking place, because it's not being invested into saws, it's going into beer. If you can understand how that analogy works. All right, so now I'm going to leave it at that, right? Because this is so deep. Like, there is so much more to read on this. And again, if you want access to this, it's over at the UE University. There's a link down in the description, and you'll have it just the same as all the rest of us do, who are trying to break this stuff down for ourselves so that we have a better understanding. But now this is something that I find very interesting, is that when we go to the Cantillon essay, what we learn from not only the statement coming from Congress, but it is very similar to the statement that is coming from Cantillon. Right? So now let's hear what Cantillon has to say, because he talks about a couple of different methods of new money coming into the system, and one of them happens to be the borrowing road. Right? And it says here, money lent to the state in this manner brings many advantages with it, but in the end is always burdensome and harmful. The state must pay interest to foreigners every year, and aside from this loss, the state is at its mercy, or is at the mercy of foreigners who can always cause trouble if they decide to withdraw their capital. Bang. Right? And this is the part that everybody is now so concerned about. Cantillon talked about it. The borrowing road is going to be one of massive stimulus. You can use it to buy all kinds of foreign products, but it is going to end in a harmful and burdensome way. And this is the direction we're headed down. Congress admits it right here. What does it say? There we go. Let's see here. Let me read it again. From an economic perspective, foreign holdings of federal debt can be viewed in a broader context of U.S. savings, investment, and borrowing from abroad. For decades, the United States has saved less than it invests. Domestic savings is composed of saving by U.S. households, business, and governments. By accounting identity, When the government runs budget deficit, it reduces domestic savings. By the same by the same accounting identity, the shortfall between U.S. savings and physical investment is met by borrowing from abroad. To meet the net borrower from abroad, the United States must run a trade deficit, i.e., it must buy more products, more imports from foreigners than it sells. Borrowing from abroad has occurred through foreign purchases of both U.S. government and U.S. private securities. As a result of foreign purchases of Treasury securities, the federal government must send U.S. income abroad to foreigners. Very much, right? Just like, what did he say here? The state must pay interest to foreigners every year. Aside from this loss, the state is at the mercy of foreigners. Same thing as what Cantillon is saying here. Right? So this isn't new. This is something that has happened in the past, and we have to recognize what it is that is actually occurring. People want to blame this on government, blame it on politics, blame it on all kinds of things, and don't get me wrong, there is plenty of blame to go around, and there is definitely some significant power that they hold when it comes to understanding what it is that they are doing. I don't deny that. The problem that we now need to face is that the understanding of the economic forces that are playing out that have been told from history. This is stuff that happened long before any government, right? Before any kind of United States government was taking place, before the central bankers, before all that. And there was financial issues that were happening that were very similar to what we are experiencing today, because there are underlying economic forces that are going to be playing out. They look differently, right? Cantillon was talking about horses and wagons. Today we have cell phones and airplanes. This is definitely a different game that is being played. But if you don't recognize how these two similarities are playing out right now, I don't know how more it could be described. It's right there. I mean, he's just straight up saying it. U.S. income will be lower than it currently is of foreign interest payments in this scenario, right? And very much the state must pay interest to foreigners abroad every year. This is exactly the same thing, only different, right? And so now if you want this access to this information, I have a link to it that was left by our community on the community page of the UE University, or you can go and look it up yourself. It's titled Foreign Holdings of Federal Debt, Congressional Research Service, updated May 23rd, 2025. You can go get it for yourself. Now, I don't know who else out there is sharing this kind of information with you, but this is something that is definitely recognizable through the information that we have shared many times here on this channel. It is very different from what it is that you are going to find anywhere else out there on the internet. I get it, but this is economics from a working class point of view. Not many people have been able to develop it and be able to share it in this sort of idea. We are very few. And once we have grabbed a hold of this idea and I find evidence of it happening over and over again and I share it with you, I know that we are on the right track. Everybody else changes their belief systems, right? Everybody else is flipping around trying to figure out what it is that the Federal Reserve is doing. We are committed to our ideas. We know what the Federal Reserve is up to when it comes to the neutral interest rate and the Fed funds setting policy. Okay? We see it plain as day. All right, let's break down some comments here and move on. Good luck finding parts for those old clankers getting harder each year. Yeah, I can believe that. Just like the Bible, love the foreigner. Cantillon's essay on economic theory link coming. Thank you so much, all night. I really appreciate it, man. Please give the guys some likes on this. Yes, thank you very much for hitting the like button. We got 235 people watching right now. 49 likes. You can have it well over 200. Just reach over there and hit that thumbs up. Number one principle of economics is international trade. Tesla trucks might be the ugliest vehicles I have ever seen. Why trust you? I don't think you should trust me. In fact, that's probably the last thing you should do, is trust some dude who's sitting in a truck and working lumberyard and doing all that other stuff that you would never ever trust. So now I have left links down in the description. Well, maybe not to this video, but to all the rest of the videos I've ever done. There is a link down in the description for you to go and research for yourself, so you can then internalize the information, form your own opinion, then use my idea and my opinion to form your own opinion. Do not trust trust me. I never asked anybody to trust me. When I go and I speak on stage at the Rebel Capitalist or the Silver Symposium or here in a few days down at Zuber's conference, one rental at a time, I don't expect anybody to trust me. I expect people to hear what I had to say and then actually try to do the research to counter what it is that I have shared. And if they can, I am proud of them, because what I am sharing, I believe, is the absolute truth of the matter in every way. So if you don't trust me, that's good. I hope you don't, right? And that would only mean that you're going to research the information that I am sharing even that much more to prove me wrong. And if you can, I would be very proud of you for that, because I can't find anybody who can prove me wrong. I will debate anybody on this stuff. Anybody, I don't care who they are. Right? Don't trust me. I trust shroomies. All right. It's not that I disagree. In fact, I wanted to agree, but a healthy skeptic is taught to question who says they have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. What I have is the answers to the questions that I have asked myself, and then I've shared it here on this channel. I don't have the answers to everything. I can't tell you where to put your money. I don't have the answer for that. I can't tell you. You know deep down inside where it needs to be. But I can't tell you where that is because I don't know you. Now, I can share what it is that I have found out here on the internet from all the research that I have done through all the years, going through speeches and documents, and then people sharing speeches and documents and their ideas with me. And I can then form an opinion that I can then articulate out here on the internet and hope that somebody has then internalized it for themselves and then looked at their position and says, I know what to do. That's what I'm hoping for. Because I can't tell you that. You can. You know deep down inside when you're doing it right and you're doing it wrong. And you know where you need to go. Now, sometimes it just takes a little bit of guidance to understand what the situation is that you're facing in order to then understand what it is that you need to do. But taking this information in for yourself is absolutely the only way you can do it. And if you are very critical of what it is that I have shared, in order to get the information internalized, I hope you are. I hope you take all the information in to disprove me, only to find that the stuff that I am sharing is by far the most accurate. All right. Everything will be revealed if one wants in heaven. I reckon ones wouldn't, though. Okay. Check out Fortitude Ranch, real life insurance for when the SHTF. That's right, Larry. Okay, let me back it up here a little bit. I learned a lot from you, E. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And it's really like, I just share the stuff that I find so that you can internalize it for yourself. Like, I mean, there's a plenty of stuff. Like, I mean, I can only get to so much information, right? I mean, there's only so many hours in a day, and there's only so much that I can do. But when you start getting into a like-minded view and you start having this understanding of this particular theory, and then you're out there looking for evidence of it, it's amazing what the community can find. Like this, what I have shared with you today, I didn't find this. This was sent to me, right? So now I'm sharing it with you. But very few people would probably even share the stuff that I have shared here, considering that if they don't understand Cantillon's essay on economic theory, or never heard of it, or never read it, how would you combine those two? Here it is, Cantillon is describing something from hundreds of years ago that is almost described exactly the same way inside of congressional research. I mean, it's just like, so can't tell me that ain't accurate, right? I mean, they're like two pieces of evidence literally separated by centuries, described almost exactly the same way. I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean, pretty close. All right, why would they need the Fed anymore once digital AI money system comes out? Wouldn't need the IRS for some reason. They know where every dollar is. Well, I think we could probably discuss that one for quite some time, but in my opinion, the Federal Reserve and the ability to control the financial system, right? The debt issuance, I think that's the control, not necessarily the dollars or the currencies or anything, but really when it comes to borrowing itself, All right, I trust you more than I would trust a politician telling me what to do with my money. Plus, he never asked for money. He's grateful when he receives it. Well, thank you, Kyle. I really appreciate that. but I don't necessarily agree that I don't ask for money because I kind of do, right? I mean, I'm asking you to sign up and be part of the community and join in on some of the memberships and stuff like that. And ultimately, that's asking you for money. Now, that is the only thing I really had to sell. And if I have something very useful inside of that for sale, then I'm feel like that's a good exchange, right? And so now everybody's on a symbiotic relationship here, right? I get a little bit of revenue and hopefully you get a little bit of education that you can use in your future. And I think that's like a fair thing, right? That's how life works, right? So I mean, but to think that I never asked for money, that's not necessarily true. I do, in that way. You're a good dude. Thank you. I appreciate it, Kyle. All right. Great channel. Well, thank you, Brandon. I really appreciate it, man. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate all the support. And, I really want the channel to be informative, right? So, staying on topic and trying to keep the information flowing. This is really what we're up to. When we figure out what it is that we need to do for ourselves, that's the important part, right? Because we're going to break through this stuff time and time again, hashing out the same thing over and over again because we have new people who join in, and then sometimes you just need to hear it over and over again before it finally sticks. The programming that we have received from childhood, right? I mean, the schools, society, everything, our parents, jobs, it's conditioned us in such a way that we have literally become victim to our circumstances. And this is a very unfortunate thing for most people to face. When I share the information, it seems so backwards from what a lot of people would have anticipated or expect from the economy or from the government or anything else going on. But once you see it for yourself, you start really understanding what it is that you need to do, and then understand that nobody's going to be doing the same thing. So when you hear somebody say, hey, how do we fix this? And you're thinking, you need to understand it because you need to fix what it is that you're doing, not anything else out there. The fact that we are facing going into the future with the ever increasing amounts of separation between the rich and the poor is not going to change. And the ability of what it is that the people were capable of, like with a regular average job, that's gone. Like that ain't the same story, and we're not going to be able to tell that same story going into the future. But there is a new story that's being told, and if you can see how it's going down, then you can figure out how to position yourself. I mean, you think about it right now, jobs suck, right? Like a regular average job sucks. Good jobs are starting to suck. And now who is doing well? Asset holders. The people who have positioned themselves to then have have something of value that's going to increase. Like I don't know how to put it, but for the most part, people have to understand that if you do not put your money towards a secure rate of interest beyond that of your occupation, you're probably going to get left behind. What that means is asset allocation. Dividend paying stocks, businesses, rental properties, something of this nature, right? Like figuring out your skills, leveling up your skills. This is how you got to figure out what you got to do in order to become the asset holder, because eventually you need to be the property owner. And if you're not doing that thing, you're going to get left behind. And people are going to complain about that, saying, oh man, it shouldn't have to be that way. And you're right. I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair. You shouldn't have to do it. I don't like it. I mean, the idea of being like a landlord does not sound very appealing. I like the idea of having rental properties. That sounds awesome. But I work at a lumber yard, right? I do retail sales for a living. I live in one of the oldest cities around. Like, I mean, Astoria is a legacy city. It's been around for like 200 years, right? Maybe not that long, but it's been around for a long time, 150 plus years, something. And this place is in a constant state of repair. I know a lot of landlords around here. They're all incredibly busy people, constantly working on these homes. And when I see that all the time, I'm not just the one who's exposed to the people who are taking, oh man, this is an awesome thing, get into it. Like we're going down to Zuber's conference, and you're going to hear all these wonderful, awesome rainbow stories about what it is to be in rental properties. Meanwhile, I'm watching the nightmares take place every single day with busted sewer systems and trashed apartments and all kinds of stuff that has happened, from these rental properties. Because when the landlord is down there at my location, down at the store, they're not there because everything is good. Right? So I see a lot of hell. when it comes, or at least hear the stories of it. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good stories out there, and I am definitely one on the page that if you are going to be wealthy in this environment, in this economy, in this day and age, that you have to be moving towards property ownership. And there is really no other better way to do that than through rental properties. And the people who are doing that today are sharing that information on how they got there. That's the way that you need to go. Like, if you are not moving in that direction, then you're probably going to be struggling. Now, with that being said, Cantillon describes capitalist as being the other people who live independently of the state. Now, you want to live independently, you have to have a secure rate of interest beyond that of your occupation. You do not need to be a property owner or landlord to do that. There is all kinds of ways to figure out yield. So figuring out that yield is going to be very important for your independence away from being relying on a job or whatever's going on out there. You live independently. You live independently of the state. You live independently of other people, all that stuff, right? That's a very free spot to be. Like, that's awesome. Now, the problem with that is that if you are not a property owner, you do not dictate what it is that's happening within the economy. That is the property owners. Everything that is occurring within the economy is a result of the property owners. That's it. Right? So, yeah, you can live independently of the state and you can have all the freedom you want. But if you want to be in charge of what it is that is actually occurring within the economy, you have to be moving towards property ownership. Otherwise, you're just investing in the system and you're taking advantage of it, which is fine. Like, that's the position I'd rather be in, because, like, you know, why be in charge of anything? Just collect everything, you know? But the real owners, the real economy, the real people who are in charge are the property owners, and that's it. Nobody else. What time is it? Alrighty, guys, I got a few more minutes here. Living in Portland, Oregon, being a landlord is a no-go. Yeah, I can imagine. All right. Edinburgh Council sold of their car garages and housings for 300 each, 94 moneymaker. Huh. I don't know what that means. Okay. When condos crash hard, I think that is a good time to buy, since the roof, lot, etc. is shared cost. I think being a landlord as providing homes for people, not being a dickhead. Yeah. No, I mean, when I listen to most landlords, when I listen to them, they are not like, I don't hear it, at least from the ones that I hear. They're very, like, they want to provide a decent place. Like, they literally, like, they're very concerned about providing a decent place for their tenant. Like, they don't want the tenant to live in a hellhole, and they don't want people to say, hey man, he rents out hellholes, right? Like, they want to say he rents out nice place, or she, right? They rent out nice places. That's their, like, that particular landlord has nice apartments for rent. That's what they want for their reputation. They don't want it the other way around. Like, that's important to them. Like, every single landlord I know, that's the way they are. Like, it's a very important to, because we live in a small community, you know, like, everybody knows each other here. I mean, it's 10,000 people in Astoria, 30,000 people in the entire county. It's like, everybody knows each other, and it doesn't take much to figure out something about somebody if you really want to, because everybody knows everything about everybody here. So when you have a reputation to uphold, it's very important that you maintain that. And that's something that I find from a lot of the landlords around here, is that they don't want to be known as somebody who rents out a slum, you know, or because there is no place like that around here. Everybody pays a high rent and they want to get the highest rent for it. And because people pay a high rent, they have nice apartments to rent. You know what I mean? All right, you also need to be a carpenter as a landlord. That's definitely something that I find. All the landlords who are somewhat successful around here seem to be working on their places a lot. Like, a lot. They're always down here constantly work, because it's a constant, it's an old city, right? And so, you know, places around here are in a constant state of repair. All right. Assuming you put 20% down on a property in the last 5 years. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. Alrighty. Well, guys, I think I gotta call it quits here. We're 29 minutes into it anyway, so I really appreciate everybody who has hit that like button. We got 304 people watching, 97 thumbs up. The first 10, 15 minutes of this video were pure gold. I really appreciate everybody who has hit that like button and who has also joined the community, the UE University, where we break down stuff just like this that I have shared with you earlier. We do it in ways that gives you the ability to then internalize this information for your best, most appropriate possible outcome. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I keep saying it over and over again. But this is how you do it. Once you have internalized the information, you just kind of see it taking place out there, and you don't look for other people to guide you. You're just guiding yourself through it, through your own understanding. So this is what we're doing. I'm breaking this stuff down for you. All right, you guys are awesome. First 10 minutes, I will have to rewatch. You didn't watch the first 10 minutes? All right, you guys are awesome. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.